Be tabled. It can be tabled. There is no objection. Question number 10, Jan Logie.
Speaker, my question is to the Minister of Women's Affairs and asks, what has she done to address the Human Rights Commission's criticism of the prevailing, quote, pale ambition for women's progress in New Zealand, unquote?
The Honourable Joe Goodhew.
I disagree with the statement from the previous EEO Commissioner. The government's targets for women's progress are very ambitious. We're focusing on achieving greater economic independence for women, more women in leadership and women's increased safety from violence.
Supplementary question, Jan Logie.
Did the Minister consider that when she used her only opportunity to appoint to a statutory board, to appoint a man to the National Advisory Council on the Employment of Women, she undermined her commitment to advancing the representation of women at board level?
Honourable Joe Goodhew.
The way that I will answer that for the member is to talk about what this government believes, and that is that when around the table there is diversity of thought, diversity of representation, be that age, gender, ethnicity, then there are better decision makers. The person the member is referring to, Michael Barnett, with his work in the Equal Employment Opportunities Trust, is ideally suited to bring a particular view, skills and knowledge to the table to advance, in fact, to advance progress for women. This particular government believes in diversity.
Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, Jan Logie.
I seek leave of the House to table the Human Rights Commission report from 2012 that shows a decline in the number of women on statutory boards.
Leave is sought to table that document. Is there any objection? There is none. It can be tabled.
The Speaker, supplementary.
Supplementary question, Jan Logie.
Question to the Minister. Did the Minister meet with the Prime Minister regarding the Queen's Birthday Honours list to discuss why only 15% of the top 40 honours went to women?
Honourable Joe Goodhew.
Mr. Speaker, I'm trying to be really sure about whether I have ministerial responsibility for this. But when I meet with the Prime Minister to discuss the advancement of women, we certainly have discussed bringing more nominations, and I've certainly put to my colleagues that I'm very keen to see as many nominations, not only for appointments and honours, but also for appointments to boards. In fact, we rely on all members of this House and the public as well to nominate women for honours. And yes, I was disappointed there were not more women, but we have to deal with what is actually put forward in the way of nominations.
Supplementary question, Jan Logie.
Is the Minister comfortable that while her ministry monitors the gender pay gap, there is no ministry responsible for the delivery of initiatives to close it?
Mr. Speaker, could I ask the member to repeat the question?
Could the member please repeat the question for the benefit of the Minister?
Is the Minister comfortable that while her ministry monitors the gender pay gap, there is no ministry responsible for the delivery of initiatives to close it?
Honourable Joe Goodhew.
The member is simply incorrect. The Ministry of Women's Affairs is a policy ministry that does a lot of work to assist New Zealanders to actually close the gender pay gap. I might remind that member that it is now at its lowest level ever. Whilst not responsible for the legislation, that the ministry in fact is working very, very hard to assist in closing the gender pay gap.
Supplementary question, Tracey Martin.
Kia ora. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the Minister. As the Minister of Women's Affairs, has she requested any reports on the effects of her government's previous cuts to adult and community education funding for Māori, Pacific and migrant women in light of these women being identified as the most vulnerable by the Human Rights Commissioner's report? And if not, why not?
Honourable Joe Goodhew.
Mr. Speaker, no.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question. Is this a point of order?
I seek leave.
It's a point of order.
Yes.
Yes. Seeking leave. Price.
Speaker, I seek leave for two reports. The first of the National Party in 1975 appointing a man as Minister for Women's Affairs. The second one is a report where at the first World Indigenous Conference the Australians sent a white man.
On the basis that could assist the members, leave is sought to table those documents. Is there any objection? There appears to be none. They will be so tabled. Supplementary question, Jan Logie.
Does the Minister understand how her actions and her inactions add to the current perception?
I'm sorry. Point of order, Metiria. Turei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My apologies to my colleague behind me, but it has been and continues to be, during this point of order, impossible to hear my colleague's question because of the constant and persistent barraging from the National Party side of the House. And I'd ask that they be asked to be quiet while she delivers her question.
The member is making a reasonable point. The level of noise from many parts of the House has been quite excessive today. Jan Logie, supplementary question without interjection from the back right-hand corner of the House. And that includes where Mr Brownlee happens to be sitting as well. Jan Logie, supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Does the Minister understand how her actions and inactions add to the current perception that she is failing to take leadership on anything positive for women in New Zealand?
Mr. Speaker.
Order! Honourable Joe Goodhew.
Mr. Speaker, the member started her first question by quoting from the Sex and Power report card, and I would do similarly. And I quote from page 3, the Prime Minister John Key and successive Ministers of Women's Affairs, Hekia Parata and Joe Goodhew, have helped mainstream the debate about women on boards. Just one example.
Order. Point of order, Jan Logie, and this point of order will be heard in silence.
I seek leave to table the 2012 survey that shows only 5% of New Zealand women consider women have equality.
The member needs to identify the source of the survey.
From the Next magazine investigation.
Then that is available.
Nielsen survey.
Order, that is available to members if they so want to subscribe.
No, it's really hard to find, Mr. Speaker.
Order. That's available to members if they want to subscribe to the Next magazine. Question number 11. Honourable Peter Dunn.
Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Minister of Conservation, and it asked